so you guys can hear. And more importantly, I like to make sure there's conversation. So I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. Do not be offended or scared by the pace in which I brief. If you need to put your hand up and stop me, please feel free. What I always prefer is that you ask questions. Some of this briefing may not be tailored directly for you because, again, this is kind of our generic briefing, kind of catch all kinds of folks, not just aviators, but just in case. Actually, mostly controllers. So, as you mentioned, my name is Kevin Pryor. I'm the MIC at the Aurora Center that provides weather support to the FAA. And the FAA guys that are in Chicago Center, so if you take off anywhere in the local area, yes, they talk to you probably at some point in time. So I provide them weather support. My unit does that really between 5 and 9 o'clock in the evening because there's just not that much flying afterwards. And we do that pretty much every day, Monday through Friday, Saturdays, Sundays included, because people still can fly on those days too. So again, like I said, if you got any questions, please feel free to stop me. And to give you a secondary portion of why I'm kind of a big fan of aviation weather outside of just being a meteorologist, my reserve job, my summer job, I like to remind people, is I'm a hurricane hunter. So I do fly, a hurricane hunter. So I'm in the airplane a lot as well. So oftentimes I'll be on frequency and I give the controllers hell if they sound like crap, and they give us a bad clearance as well. So I'm there with you on both sides of the frequency, as it were. Really give you kind of a quick breakdown of what we do. Again, the National Weather Service does work with the FAA. We're partners, as you can well imagine. The most important thing that we'll be talking about is really how we're situated, why we're there, and kind of what we try to provide them during the course of our daily shift. Traffic management, if you don't know the term, is going to be used quite a bit here. The big thing about traffic management is how does the FAA manage all the air traffic in the continental United States? They have to do it through a series of programs, and a lot of things are involved. It's a really big, huge thing. But what I like to remind people is that there are a lot of people involved with the big system, but there are a lot of humans involved. We try and take a lot of things in consideration, and obviously the weather doesn't. So that's my job, is to let them know what the weather's going to do so they can get you to where you want to be relatively on time. The reason we had this relationship actually is quite simple. There was an accident. Like in the case of most things in government, something bad happens, people realize, hey, we need to get the right people together, and they did. So during the course of this investigation, the NTSB made a recommendation. The FAA followed suit. National Weather Service basically brought some folks in-house to each facility to be able to provide them with support. There's 21 facilities. So you have a team of about 4 in each facility providing them with support. Our facility and a couple of others actually have a few more people involved, only because of the volume of traffic that they run. So Chicago, New York, and Atlanta typically move the largest volume, so they have a little bit more support from the National Weather Service in terms of people. I would like to say it's better here in Chicago than anywhere else, but in truth, we do specialize in trying to make sure that each of the centers get exactly what they need during the course of their operation. This is kind of what we look like in there. It's kind of a small area, but trust me, we have a ton of monitors. We have, in my last duty assignment in Atlanta, we had 21 monitors for every one person in there. Now we have about 16 in my current location. So we've downsized a little bit. The key thing about this, obviously, is that we're there to provide them with support. You see there, it's on-demand briefings. And those briefings are there to provide both the specialists that are actually working on sector as well as their frontline managers and their supervisors, and have them have a clear understanding of what the weather impacts are going to be during the course of the day. And this is just a list of some of the products and what we generate for them. And again, the idea is that we make sure that they know what weather impacts are going to maybe slow down traffic. They're going to have to move traffic around for whatever reason. And if I can come up with some good examples, I will try to do so. Are most of you general aviation folks? Okay. I'll need that. Again, for terminology, if you see anything you don't recognize and you need to know, let me know. Otherwise, he's going to keep these slides, and you guys can do what you want with them. Key reason traffic managers is a big deal. They load balance traffic in general for aircraft that are flying in. For those of you that, for whatever reason, were to fly into O'Hare and get caught in the stream, there are a significant number of airplanes typically trying to land there. They have the capacity to land 112 airplanes on a good day in 1 hour. That doesn't count how many flying out. It just counts how many you can put down on the deck. So to give you an idea of that, if that number shrinks down for whatever reason, well, now we're worried about demand and capacity. So they have a tremendous amount of capacity, but sometimes demand exceeds that. So they're going to have to initiate quite a few traffic management initiatives. Typically, those issues are going to be weather-related. Right now, they're going to be manning-related. You're going to staffing be a big issue. But outside of the issue with sequestration right now, quite honestly, weather's the biggest player, which is the reason why we're forefront in a lot of the operations. So these are some of the terms you would hear if you had a controller guy here to sit here and dazzle you with their vocabulary and their glossary of phrases. But the most important thing for all of you to understand is that you can all get caught up at some level in one of these. You want to get use gentleman here as an example. Say, hey, Rich, you want to fly down Kentucky Derby's on, right? I'm going to fly down there. Your expectation is you'll be able to take off at a certain time, land at a certain time, so you and your loved one can get there with a big, beautiful hat and watch the horses run. Well, unfortunately, traffic management initiatives may be in the way that may slow that down. And you may not know that until you taxi. And then he says, sir, you got to hold. Well, why am I holding? Well, sometimes you're here weather, sometimes you're here for traffic management initiatives. But understand, these are all the tools that they're utilizing to fix, balance that requirement. And you're thinking, dude, I'm going to be at 10 grand or lower driving all the way down. I shouldn't impact much of anybody. I'm going to be here far. Well, there may be a reason out there. They drew a line in the big airspace and said, anyone going to Kentucky today is going to have to take off at this time and slow down. So, again, understand that it may not be a weather issue, but it could very well be one of these issues. Because obviously weather is a player. They do have playbooks involved oftentimes. Going into New York, going down to Florida especially, if weather is going to be a big player, obviously when out here further west, I hate to say Chicago's so west, but it kind of is. But once you get a little bit further east past, certainly Ohio, you get into those corridors that are very, very tight. And as a result of that, they don't play. They just like to stick you on a lane and say, hey, you're on a jet route or whatever, and just want to drive you right there. But, hey, big thunderstorm gets in the way, it's going to mess a lot of that up. So as a result of that, they have to try and be flexible. But more importantly, they have to rely on us to give them an idea how long that thunderstorm or that impact is going to dwell there. And they plan for that. And some of the tools that we utilize to try and keep them aware of some of the things that are going on are obviously listed here. The TWA, Center Weather Service Advisory, we mentioned. We have some other tactical decision aids that we provide them so they can understand when those thunderstorms are going to either move out or maybe the winds are going to change or whatever, or what have you. So, again, these are tools that we have in our playbook, as it were, to make everything run as smoothly as possible. But the biggest tool that we have is obviously being there to make the decision. Oftentimes there's going to be a gentleman there that walks in, or ladies, and says, hey, this is what we want to do today. But without us being able to kind of, instead of them maybe reading it, on the web or something, or reading it in some direction, us talking to them, giving them that confidence to understand. It's no different than you watch television now. You've got a function that you're going to go to, and you look at the TV and you're like, well, is it really going to rain or not? You're looking at that weather guy, and they're getting paid big money to convince you that they know what's going on. That's what we do as well for our traffic management plan, to help them understand exactly what's going on. But we're not alone in this entire process in helping decision makers. Airline guys have their own meteorologists as well, and we work hand in hand with them as well to try and make sure that we all are talking about the same impact, and those impacts are well understood so the whole thing can fit together. And like we said, everyone can kind of get there on time. Some of our tools, what they look like, we kind of dumb it down for air traffic guys too. Red means bad, green means good. So we just try and make sure we understand the threshold, and then we can quantify what the impacts are going to be to them.
That one there, that was kind of familiar. Yeah, obviously.
Absolutely. That's our webpage. And typically what we do is that page is designed specifically for air traffic control guys to look at it at different levels, whether it's the center, TRACON, or even the tower. Obviously, as aviators, you have an option to look at it too, and the opportunity that afforded you now is to understand, well, if it's red here and weather's bad here, they may end up launching one of those initiatives, and I may not get able to get out in time. So I like to tell everybody, whether you fly or whether you talk to people that do fly, looking at the weather, getting a good handle on it is going to help you modify your expectations. You may want to go today. You may really feel like you need to go today, but maybe thunderstorm said, now let's not go today. So as a result of that, I always tell people, check out a forecast. let that manage your emotions and help you manage your emotions a little bit better instead of either being upset with the guy in the frequency who really doesn't care or anybody else in line. They don't. And, again, some of our products, you might have heard about some of these TCFE convective forecast product is really a nationwide product. It's a big picture product. As general aviation guys, you may get caught up in it only kind of as a secondary function. You know, some guy back in D.C. in some center is going to decide, hey, this is what's going on in my center, so I need to do this. So you may get caught up in some initiatives associated with that particular product. Again, anything that you see can help your situational awareness and, again, help you plan better. And that's what this is all about. All the tools that we provide to the controllers help them plan their day to deal with you on frequency. Same for you. So when you flight plan, you're looking at AirMets, SIGMets, et cetera. We have similar products. Actually, a lot serve the same function. And then looking at them, again, you can help plan your day out, whether it's today or tomorrow. But understand, as a facility, we don't look much further than that out. We don't do 7-day forecasts because our concerns are really within the next 24 hours. And rarely do we look well beyond that. It's really the first 8 hours. So, again, we provide them with all kinds of support. One of the big things I like to put when I talk to aviators is this. Pilots are seriously important. Over the past couple of years, it's been a huge initiative here in Chicago to make sure those pilot reports are getting not just transmitted to them, to the controllers to understand what's going on, but back out of the system. Unfortunately, with the humans that are involved and not being completely electronic, there's going to be times in which the pilot report doesn't get out as quickly as it could. So we've taken some significant steps to try and smooth that out and make it as efficient as possible. So trust that when you do issue a pilot report, that information is getting out to your buddies that are going to be flying next, you know, taking off after you or whatever. But one thing I also want to stress, too, is whenever you do a pilot report, please be by the book. And this is off script because this is a personal thing for me. In Atlanta, as a forecaster, I had a guy call in one time. He said he was experiencing severe turbulence. Extreme turbulence. Yeah, exactly. And my concern was, wow, extreme turbulence. So bells go off typically for the weather guy. And for the controller, fortunately, they weren't very, very young, but they were young enough that they needed a senior person to come over top and kind of make sure that we won, get them down into a VFR section or sector so they can go ahead and land. What we found out later, obviously, it wasn't even close to extreme. It was maybe severe, maybe severe. But because they were fairly young or new, I don't really know the age of the pilot, but whoever was flying utilized that terminology. One of the big things we use it as a teaching point, both for the controllers and obviously for anyone else, is that when you say extreme, bells go off in the area immediately. So we're gonna now divert all our resources. That one person that was talking to 8 planes is now talking only to you, buddy. So now you've got someone that's very highly paid and trying to save your life and land you, and you probably got 3 or 4 other people standing behind them. So that level of service now focuses completely on you. So what we like to say is, please don't waste it. And I just had this happen 2 weeks ago, and I was livid. No one wants to see me upset, but that's what happened. I was like, are you kidding me? So I almost went VFR direct to that controller and said, you took extreme from who and what happened? Simply because it's a serious deal for them. And so obviously if you're on this side of it, if it's, and forgive the language, but if it's a pucker factor that's really high for you in the airplane, we're going to be just as concerned. I mean, we are going to be just as concerned. So don't play with it. So what I told them was, and you don't want to get berated on the frequency, what I tell them is I will do this every time I talk to any aviation guys that fly. If it's extreme, bells are going off. And we are all putting our cape on to try and save you. If there's anything less than that, put your coffee down, we'll get you down. Don't worry about it, you know. So there is a significant difference. And
just a reminder, extreme is anything that is most likely going to cause structural damage to the aircraft.
And you have to honestly be able to say, I have no control of the aircraft. So if you don't have any control of the aircraft, or you feel like you've absolutely lost control of the aircraft, again, that's a big deal. We're going to make sure you get as much attention as possible to get control of that, because we can't physically help you, but we're going to try and talk you through it as quickly as possible. And my job as a weather guy is to make sure you get out of that condition. So I need to know where it is, what happened, the whole 9 yards. So to overemphasize that, unfortunately, also does disservice to anyone else that's flying. So they will block that airspace off and say, no one flies through here again. and until we can confirm that, it's safe. So that's my foot stopping moment for today. I always use these as an opportunity to tell somebody that, because every time I hear an extreme, I do have to pull the card out and say, dude, I'm a hurricane hunter. I've been doing it for like 9 years. Yeah. Let's compare what you call extreme to what I call moderate. So, again, lots of stuff that we provide to the traffic management guys to kind of make sure they understand what weather's going to do, so they can plan out whether it's over the next 4 to 6 hours or whether it's the next 8 to 12. Typically, we don't go much further than that. And what we call them are tactical decision aids, because it's a tactical situation. Obviously, if weather's moving in over a particular fix and guys can't get in over there, we're going to move you somewhere else. So that's typically what we try to make sure they understand what's going on. And everything's on the web now. It's much easier to push it on the web so you can see it. You can set up the devices you had before you now. It's amazing. I mean, you can go fly on an iPad now. You need certification in an engine. And you just stick that up there in the glass and you're good to go. Life is brilliant. Life is great. So you have actually a lot more information typically right now than the controller does, unfortunately. And if you do get a chance to get out to the scene, you'll see how they're configured. We're working on changing that too. But understand, quite oftentimes, if you are on the frequency and you're talking to a guy saying, I'm deviating left or right for weather, and they say, Roger, if you hear that pause, like, okay, because they don't really see it. We're dealing with a little bit older technology, unfortunately, so what you're seeing outside your window may not be translated to them yet. So that's when they're a little bit behind you. Obviously, you're out ahead of them. So, and we're working with our controllers and the FAA in general, trying to speed that up and try and get everybody kind of on the same playing field. Absolutely. Pilot reports are essential, and what I like to remind people is you can't tell me too much. The pilot report has a few fields in it. Fill it up. Not going to hurt my feelings anyway. With temp, wind, sky conditions. Let me know what's going on. That information goes back into the models that we utilize the forecast for. It honestly does. Every data point that you push out helps verify our forecast. So if you're saying I'm experiencing moderate turbulence, winds are 240 at 100 knots, and that checks out what I'm thinking, then I'm good to go on my forecast. What if it doesn't check out my forecast? Then maybe I need to adjust my forecast. Thank you for providing that information. So again, the service both ways. I tell the controllers the same thing. The service both ways. They provide a service to you guys, and oftentimes you guys are going to provide a service back to them when you're providing your pilot report. I just want to make sure the pilot reports are represented. That's what we talked about in very quick fashion. Are there any questions? All right, let's move to the other stuff. To the rain. And like I said, feel free to stop me, ask questions.
So you're taking off the cloud, and you can cover the path. Should you get the approach control and the departure control?
Top, of course. Yeah, basically tops are always good. Because for us, as weather guys, we really appreciate the top, because that's going to help verify a profile that we may have sent up nearby. So we'll kind of know where the moisture level is. Say, hey, yeah, the top of the cloud is really 18 instead of 22 or something.
The controller or the cartridge controller?
It doesn't matter. Any controller is complete. Yeah, because eventually they're going to put it into the system, or it's going to get into the system and we'll see it. So we'll always appreciate it, no matter who you give it to. Anything else you guys think of? You guys are real quiet. I'm not paying attention.
You're absorbing. No, let's do that. My whole weekend.
Oh, is that your basic one?
No, it's just basic.
Oh, well, yeah, you've been busy. Yeah, this was kind of a mess, and we'll get into it. We'll look at some of the numbers. Most of this stuff is on the web. Magic, right? But the key thing to understand about a lot of this, and I didn't know it was going to be on that little screen. So, yes, look at that. That's your hand. Sorry. It looked great on my screen. It worked. But the numbers were pretty much historical. As you might have heard on the news, the mighty news people were telling you, there was a lot of rain. Obviously, most of Chicagoland felt the impact, but it was further south that really got a lot of the flooding, especially in some of the secondary rivers and stuff. Over the 2-day period, this is kind of the numbers that you're looking at. So the bad numbers would be in the bright orange, bright pink, or fancy word for pink, red, chartreuse or something. Either way, that color. And those numbers are pretty big, obviously. But you can see how widespread it was. It wasn't just northern Illinois. It also extended into portions of Indiana. So it was very, very widespread. Over a 48-hour period, we received a significant amount of moisture. Now, as aviators, or just as weather buffs, because most guys like to fly and look at the Weather Channel far more than they should. The idea is that we have more than a few products you can always look at to kind of give you a heads up on that. The event didn't sneak up on anybody. And I think it's one of those deals where certainly within our agency, working with our media partners, the TV people, the radio folks, you never want to go out there and say, hey, this is going to be the worst flood ever or worst rainstorm ever, because that becomes headlines for them. For them, they need to use it to sell moments and money and paper. And, we're not trying to sell anything. We're just trying to make sure people know what's going on. And quite oftentimes, if we, say one thing and maybe doesn't meet someone's expectation with social media now, we can find out how quickly or how poorly we did. So but it was one of those events where it was obviously historic. And like I said, when you look at the numbers over time, and then you look at, again, the areas that were hit, it's just tough. Well, they say it was a 90-year rain. Yeah. But we have like that one like 2 years ago or 3 years ago or something. So I'm not a climatologist. I'm an aviation guy by trade. So a lot of times I look at those numbers and say, what does that mean to me? It looks like a lot. In my theological term, a lot. So the bigger issue, like I would like to tell everybody, isn't necessarily how historic it was. It was just how we handled it. Obviously, when it comes down to it, we had the drought last year. Now we have a tremendous amount of rainfall that comes through here now. Everyone's kind of hoping and praying that, this isn't, portend for, more flooding as the spring goes along. Honestly, no one's going to be able to tell you the honest truth about that. Chronologically, we can kind of look at the clues and give you a hint of what we think could be. But what we do know is, it was bad, and we're obviously going to make sure people understand the next threat as it comes along. And now we have kind of what we like to say is kind of a real-time measure. What I like to tell people, I lived in the Gulf Coast, lived off the Gulf Coast a little bit with my second job over the past few years. And I like to remind people that Katrina changed a lot of minds. Down on the Gulf Coast, everyone gauged everything off of Opal. And so they said, well, when Hurricane Opal came through, I was able to do this, this, and this. You can't really explain weather impacts to people unless they've lived through it. If you had the fortune and opportunity to live through Katrina, then now we have a new standard. So now we can use this flood event kind of as a standard locally for people to understand. When we talk about rainfall, persistent rainfall, and the good thing is it wasn't like thunderstorms and tornadoes and all that nasty stuff. It was just lots of rain. During most of that storm, I think they were only in the mid to upper 30s. We didn't have anything in the 40 and 50 range, which would be in the more severe type. Right. So, off and on, most of them were hard to describe because of the rain. Because the rain was coming out so steady and in some places so hard, indistinguishable. So I would probably say on the average, below 1,000 feet in most all locations. So you would have been IFR if that was if you're trying to angle for a ceiling base. You would be certainly IFR throughout the entire. Not much at all. No, it wasn't much of a big deal at all. The only issue was the flooding part. The issue for United, they had to cancel flights. They're about, they canceled flights horrible. Well, people couldn't get there. Flooding. You couldn't get there, so you pilot, you can't get there. Plane's not gonna take off by itself. Thankfully. So, yeah, that's true. So that's another thing to think about. So, again, kind of give you an eye chart on what you want to look at here for rain totals. The bright numbers, or the big numbers would be, I got a little point on it, hot stuff. Well, you can't see that much. Yeah, purple. It's all right. The purple, obviously, was the higher location. And then you can see where that line is. To the north, it wasn't quite as bad. North of Rockford, I like to say, and west, it wasn't quite so bad. And like I said, all this information is on the website. If you go to our website, Chicago Weather, National Weather Service site. It's on one of our headlines at the top. Just click on it, and I think it says the same thing. Gives you the dates and events. So these are just straight from their screen captures. A little more commentary, a little more narrative associated with it. But the cool part comes up next for those that want to geek out a little bit. The meteorology associated with it. Again, if you want to be, junior met 101 or whatever, there's lots of websites that we have out there that you can actually assess some of this information. Most important thing that we look at would be precipitable water. Basically, what we think the amount of moisture would be in the atmosphere. If it's above 2, it's going to be a wet day. Now and it's funny because you can't tell someone that's going to be the equivalent of 2 inches of rain. It's actually probably going to be a little bit more than that. But if you can see, as through here in the green, going up from Missouri all the way up into Illinois, you got that plume of moisture. So riding along the frontal boundary, the key thing is you want to look for type clouds. You guys fly, you know the type of cloud. So if I say stratiform, it's going to be a long day, long wet day. If it's cumulus, probably could be short. Bursts of rain, but heavy, but short. Well, we were obviously in a more stratiform situation with an overrunning along the frontal boundary, and it was from here to heaven, it felt like. So from all along the frontal boundary all the way over across the lake, it was just constantly raining. And the front wasn't moving too fast, basically. So a lot of precipitable water, slow-moving front, stratiform clouds, stratiform, basically scenario. It was set up for that exact same thing, a flooding event. It's very, very likely. Again, for aviation, it wasn't much of a problem. Fortunately, the freezing level was a little bit high, so it wasn't a ton of freezing associated with it. If it had been maybe later in the year, although it still feels like February, it would have been maybe a little bit more of an issue with sleet and all that kind of stuff. But since we just got rain, it wasn't that big a deal. So I forgot we had that in there. That was pretty cool. So there, that's what I was trying to point at. That's why I'm not on TV. So, just some photo impact, again, on the website. Just kind of give you an idea. It was bad. It was pretty bad. Which one? The 59? Naperville?
I'm right off 75th, 59. That's all. But I didn't get any water or anything.
That's good. Yeah, knock on wood. Well, there were lots of examples of that, too, actually, where, it was tremendous flooding on one side of the street. You see that one right there on the left on Green Avenue. And you go up the street and it's kind of high and dry. Yeah. So it was a really, really amazing event. But for those that were able to get away without any significant flood impact, again, it's kind of one of those things you can measure and say, well, flood insurance is needed, or maybe I just need to buy it.
Kennedy, the Eisenhower, and the Eagles were all closed.
I know. Yeah. Wow. That's exactly right. You're absolutely right. Because a lot of people were, still kind of messing around, trying to get somewhere, take off some route. Bad, too. Unless you got a boat. Just call it a day. Just call in and say, I'm not going to make it.
How do they expect, or how they expect this to affect, even all the way down to the bottom?
Well,
because it was so highly concentrated in the Mississippi
basin
area.
Yeah, and the issue with that is now, obviously, you hear them talking about, like last year, we were saying we can't move the barges because the river's so low. Now we can't move the barges because the river's too high. Barge people are upset. Absolutely. So a lot of people are saying, but I think, Army Corps of Engineer guys will figure it out. I mean, they're a bunch of real smart guys. I know more than a few of them, actually. And I have nothing but respect for what they do. So they'll certainly figure it out and manage it. But it was certainly one of those deals where everyone asked for rain and prayed for rain. Almost we all prayed at the same time. I pray for a little less. So these are some of the numbers and results based on 10 inches. I wasn't around here in 96 when they got like 2 feet or whatever it was. 2+ feet. That was like amazing. I was hearing all the stories. Yeah. All the guys in my shop were telling me about it, and I was just like, wow, and guys are still having to get to work, obviously, right? So it was an interesting event. So it's about half that event, maybe, in most locations. But that still shows you how widespread. I don't know the annual number, but I do know that we're well above our numbers to this point. Yeah. Yeah, probably another couple of rain events we'll probably be done in July with our average. Oh yeah. Tom's a really good guy. That's what we talked about real quick. Like I do things real fast. Because I leave it open for conversation. Anything else? Yeah. Can you get on the web there? Okay. Yeah, NASA. Just if you go to Google, just type in Chicago weather and then type in LOT. Yeah. Because that's our IKO. But it's on the front page at the top under our headline. Under the headlines, and you can click on that link. And then also, what we'd like to remind people too is if you go to that website, there's a ton of stuff there. If you got nothing else to do, spend time on that front page. There's a lot of stuff you can find, especially climatological information, based on where that information falls in terms of CLIMO for all the area, et cetera. We have a nice rivers and lake, I think rivers and lake page too, to say how high that is and what our expectations are for that. A lot. Oh, let me go ahead and put that out there too. Obviously, the government's broke. So that breaking news. Yeah. So there's a lot within our career field that we lean upon volunteers to perform for us. And there were some that we paid to perform the same service. But quite honestly, in the past 5 years, we used to look, we can't afford to pay you no more. So out of the graciousness of everyone's goodness of their heart, they continue to keep that service. Some people that, out of pocket, maintaining a web server, fishing that data over to us or whatever. We have several different programs out there. I don't want to miss all of them. But Kukurock is one of the more important ones. As a volunteer, we get a lot of our data from them. Guys that are willing to walk out, especially in the winter, walk out and check the rivers and say, hey, I've got a blockage here, and send back a note. With Facebook and with Twitter, now we can get that information. And a lot of that information has come from folks we've either trained or we know that are good reporters for that kind of information. So we depend tremendously on the general public to provide us that data and those data points. The funny thing about it, like I said before, is that we used to pay people for some of this service. Now that we don't, we thought we were going to get hit with like, oh, my God, what's going to happen now? But people were gracious. They said, look, we'll continue to do it because they realize it's a service just like what we do is a service. Love them too. Yeah. It's funny because, as a weather guy, you get these fanboys that maybe want to go, storm chase and this and that or whatever. Quite oftentimes, and I don't want to put a bad ratio out there, but, a lot of people will be wondering, well, how accurate are some of those people? Actually, they're pretty good. And some of them take it to a point where they actually want to get trained because we do offer seminars to train people. So they end up getting some pretty good training on what we look for, what is measurable, and what is justifiable information. So when we pass that information back out to people, we feel pretty confident in it, saying, yeah, it was measured at 32 inches. It was a legitimate 32 inches. Because, again, that information goes into the climatological database that goes back to, Washington, and, all those numbers drive a lot of things. Not necessarily our paycheck, but they do drive a lot of things. So we tell people all the time, if you want to volunteer to help us, please feel free, because it's not like it's a job security thing for us. It really isn't. What would happen is we just have less data points, and we may be, more likely less accurate. But the more people that are out there to help, the better we can become. And then that's informing everyone else in the long run. Yeah, go, okay, on that page, just back from, instead of CWSU, type in lock. Yeah. There you go. Why did I know. Get through that. Yeah. Yeah, we'll try to clean that up. There you go. So why it's been so wet lately is one, and at least that's one of them. Actually, I think I'll save that one too. You can have that. Slide down, and let's see. Oh, go to additional headlines. It might be under there. There you go. So, take care. Nice meeting you guys. Anytime. Have a good one. Now you speak. Look at it. Thanks. Bye. That's all you get to hear. But here you go. That's fine. So, thanks, man. Appreciate it. No, we're down there in Biloxi, Mississippi. C-130, that's us. The other group is out of McDill. Okay. Tampa. Yeah, Tampa. Yeah, they're still flying the old. That's a good deal. They're flying the old P3s, unfortunately. Kermit and Piggy. Yeah, those are some really old planes.
What's it like playing for a hurricane?
Bumpy.
Yes,
yeah, some days. Well, we only get 10,000 feet.
You go into a hurricane.
Yeah.
10,000. It's just fun.
Yeah. Well, and that depends on the size of the storm. Yeah. The most intense we go in, Cat 3, 4, and 5, we go in at 10,000. Anything less than that, we go in under that.
What?
Under 10,000. Like 5,000 feet.
Not a lot of lightning strike here.
Sometimes, yeah, but not many. In the tropical storms, not as much. But when we have these, so those are the ones that kind of suck because obviously they're moving from being a warm core storm and they're moving into much cooler and colder conditions overall. The icing, so when that develops, you have the ice, you have the chance for lightning. So those are a little more dangerous, but we don't lose any airplane.
Traveling into a hurricane that it passes how high?
Oh, it's 60 plus. I don't know. We don't get up there. We use satellites for that. Look at that.
The thunderstorm, which passes 45,000 feet, which is more treacherous?
Oh, a hurricane, because we got like several little thunderstorms swinging around. Yeah, because during the course of a flight, when you penetrate a hurricane, basically what you're looking at is a cluster of thunderstorms that ring around a low-pressure system. So it's a warm core system that's got a significant load developed there, but around it is nothing but convection and thunder. So we have to navigate that. Typically, like, how often do you do that? Well, I get to fly every year, so I don't know. Well, what I like to tell people is, if you want to be able to fly with us, you have to do two things: either you be on television, very popular, or run for office and get elected. Because we only take senators and Geraldo Rivera. So those are really the only kind of people we take. I did not know. Actually, for Katrina, I was on the ground. I launched our last airplane, then I jumped in the car and drove home to Atlanta. I haven't flown any really big storms. I've flown storms that have kind of ended up being kind of big or whatever, like Lee, and some storms that end up being big. Yeah, what's going on? Yeah, we have. Well, we don't fly through them always on purpose. Yeah. But sometimes we have to. My story with that is this: when I started flying, I was relatively junior to the crew, and so. As the meteorologist on board, you're kind of the mission director, so basically the show starts and stops with me. Well, I had a more senior person as my navigator, and he was new to the mission. And he was basically saying, hey, I want, this is where we need to go. And I cross-checked with him and said, yes, that's where we need to go. And so he basically was trying to navigate around a bunch of storms. And I told him, sir, I said, this is the lat line we need to go to, and, we're not going to be dicking and diving them through a bunch of all this stuff. We kind of have to go straight through that. So it's kind of one of those pregnant pauses where you try and politely say, sir, no, sir, kind of thing, and let him know, that, sorry, sir, we're going to have to fly through that. And for him to understand that was like, oh, really? Yeah, that's kind of our job. So we do fly through thunderstorms, but like I said, we don't try to fly through the worst thunderstorm. What is the worst thunderstorm? Well, ones that give you the downdraft of 5,000 feet or greater.
So how high are they?
Those storms?
Is that parameter you look at?
No, I don't care.
30,000 foot.
thunderstorm that things down there for 50,000?
No, they wouldn't normally.
No. So the lower the top.
Usually, absolutely. It's probably a good safe rule of thumb. But obviously, with any thunderstorm, you have a chance of downdraft.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, for us, it's they all look the same at 10,000 feet. Big.
You can't see it.
Yeah. So yeah, I like to parlay that kind of experience to these conversations when I talk to controllers as well and say, look, I've been on both sides of the frequency. I know what's going on in that regard. So I don't try and pull any wool over my eyes or bullshit or bullshit. Or
how do you guys go around? Are you freezing level?
Yes, we do. Yes, sir. And now, as a weather guy, I was trained with that. But what I like to advise every aviator that flies is utilizing the AWC products. You're really not going to get anything better. I mean, they're really good products. Anything that tells you what the freezing level is, that's got a .gov on it, is vetted. It's very, very good. The only thing I
was going to reach a point where we were 8,000 feet. We were below the freezing level. It was quite concerned, but the water wasn't freezing on the wing. Why is that?
Because you were below the freezing level?
No, we were below the freezing level. It was below zero.
Okay, so you're above the freezing level then.
No, it was 0 degree. We were negative 0. We were below the freezing level.
Well, for something like that, typically it's one of those deals where you should be seeing some ice develop. If you aren't, like you said, you could be running through an inversion at some level. Or more important, it could be the ice was developed.
No ice. You're saying no.
Yeah. Now there's this point where it can be cold enough, and it's kind of hard to describe without an actual QT. But it can be without a QT, without an upper air profile to show you what it looks like. But it can be cold enough to where the ice will form, but it would form more in the form of flake, and so it doesn't stick to the aircraft.
Yeah.
So think of it more as a dry cold versus a wet cold. Might be a better way to conceptualize it. So yeah. Well, like I said, then more than likely the area that was snowing was considerably colder than where you were. It had to be.
Could it happen in 2,000 feet?
Yeah, easily.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. This guy said it looked like snow.
Yeah.
And then we were 8,000 feet. We were below freezing.
Yeah.
It was rain.
Yeah. Like I said, it can happen. It can happen in probably less than 2,000 feet because if you got a pool of cold enough air that gets trapped there, by the dynamics, that's just what's going to happen. You can have snow